Hello and welcome to part 20 of our video series on building a Node, Express and Postgres based API. Today we're going to carry on our work on authentication tokens, and we're actually going to work on creating and returning an authentication token when a user is first registered, so that they can use that authentication token straight away without needing to log in. So it'll just allow, if you're creating a dashboard, as soon as somebody clicks create account, they can just log straight in without needing to enter their email address and password again. So what that's going to involve is we're going to need to update our user creation endpoint, more specifically the handler within, just so that we can insert or create a authentication token here, and it'll change the shape of the response from this function. So what that'll do, which is quite a natural thing, is it will break our unit tests, because the shape of the response from our unit tests from these handlers is actually going to change. So it'll actually mean we'll need to go in and update our unit tests and also our integration tests, which are currently expecting just a user to be returned when a user is created, whereas in fact now we'll have a user alongside an authentication token. If you did want to follow along with me, there's a link in the video description to the GitHub repo that we're going to be using, and the branch we're working from today is part 20 start. So if you check that out, you should have everything that we've got up here in front of us and be able to just follow along as I am. So what we'll do first of all, I'm just going to refamiliarize ourselves with what we're going to need to do. So what we'll want to do here is we'll want to create an authentication token. And what we've done in a previous video is we created this nice generator file, which has got this create authentication token function, which takes a user ID and then returns us an inserted token. And what this inserted token looks like is it's going to be a database entry that contains a user ID and a token. So we'll return that to our handler. So what we'll do first of all is we'll do const token db response equals await create authentication token, and we'll pass it in the user ID of the user that we've just created. And then what we'll do is we'll change the shape of this response so that we're returning the user, and then we'll return the token, which is the token database response dot token, because the database response is both a user ID and a token as an object, so we'll need to extract the actual token from within it to return. And what we'll need to do now is just go into our handler unit tests. There's a couple of things that we'll need to change. First, we'll need to just mock out the generator file so that we can mock out the resolved authentication token response to work with. So we'll do that by authentication token generator. So that'll mock out the file for us. And then what we'll do is we'll just grab this piece here, and within our create user test that succeeds, creates a user here. So within this test here, we'll add another mock that we're going to do. We'll just do require dot create authentication token dot mock resolved value, and what that actually returns is a user ID, which we can just give a generic user ID, and a token, which we can just call authentication token. This value actually doesn't matter at the moment, but we will use it just to assert that when that value is generated from that function, that it gets returned as part of this here. So what we'll do, just to have a quick look at what we've got so far, we'll just run our unit tests. I typically like to run unit tests frequently whenever I'm making any changes like this, just so that I can see exactly what's broken within the test so that we can check what's going on. So what we can see is we've got create authentication token is not defined. So let's have a look. Okay, so there's a chance that I have actually create authentication token. Let me just copy and paste that there's a chance I've made a typo, so rerun that one again. Reference error, await expect. Oh, hang on, that looks like it's actually an issue within here, and that is because this hasn't actually been imported properly, so we'll just do that ourselves. Const equals require authentication token generator. So I'll run that one again. And what we should see is we should have a failing test, and the main reason that we have a failing test is because the shape of the response has actually changed. So what we've actually received now is a token and a user object, which isn't what the test was actually expecting. So in here we've got the test that's actually expecting create user resolves to just equal the created user, when actually what it should now resolve to is we should have user, which is a created user, and token, which is, I'll just grab this value from here, token, which should be this token here. So I'll rerun that again, and we've got passing test, which is great. So what that means is that our handler is now successfully creating an authentication token and returning it in the shape of the response that we're expecting it to as well. On the root side, what we'll just have to do here is we can destructure this response that we get from create user, because it's now going to have a user and a token. And then what we'll want to do is the JSON object that we return to the front end, we're actually going to want that to be a user, which will be our redacted user, and a token. And what that will allow is the front end that's picking that up will be able to see a distinct authentication token that it can store to then send with any future requests for things like updating a user or deleting a user, so that it's got the authenticated access to be able to do that. And it will also have the user that it can save, possibly within like local storage or something like that, just so that we can reference it across the front end of any applications that we're building. So we'll update that there. There's not actually anything that we need to do within our unit tests for the roots, because they don't explicitly check for this res.json here, so we don't need to worry too much about that. But what we will do now is we will update our user creation integration tests. And the reason that we're going to do that, I'm just going to stand up the application so that we can run our integration tests. Our integration tests are actually going to be checking for whether the response is just a user. So let's just run those, integration test. And what we'll actually find is that the shape of the response is actually not what we were expecting at all. So you'll notice there that we're actually seeing a nested object here for a user instead of just a plain user, and we've got this token field that we're not expecting as well. So what we can do in our create endpoint, we'll create integration tests, is we'll find the test that passes and returns a user. And we'll notice that the res.data equals currently just the flat object. So what we'll do is we'll just add user. Add user like that. So we've got the nested user object. We'll just rerun the tests again. And what we'll see is that the only bit that we're missing now is a token. Now the token, we're not going to know this ahead of time, so we can't explicitly check for this string. But what we have done in our generator unit tests is we've actually got an expect assertion here that's got a string matching an irregular expression that checks that the string is what we're expecting it to be for a token that we create. So we can make use of that, and we can just go into here and we can just do token, and we'll expect a string that is 36 characters long, including letters, numbers and dashes. And we can rerun our integration tests, and what we've got is we've got the expected results back there that that we're now expecting because of a change of shape of things. So what this will allow us to do is handle user registration. So when a user registers on our application, they can automatically be logged in and begin making authenticated requests just by the shape of the response here. And what we'll do in the next video is we'll implement an endpoint that is just going to be for authenticating users. So that'll be more like if you're hitting a login page and you enter your email address and password because you're on a different machine or on a mobile device or something, and that'll handle generating an authentication token for you, but it'll also do things like checking the validity of the password that you've entered against the account as well. So there'll be a little bit more to it. But I think that'll be it for today's video. I hope it's been informative, and I'll see you on the next one.